Hi everyone, it's the Kilted Brewer, and today we're going to be doing our very first interview, and I'm delighted to be here at Golden Coast Mead with CEO, owner, and head brewer Frank Golbeck. How are you doing today, Frank?
Great. Get to drink mead and talk about mead. This is what we love to do.
Awesome. Yeah. So what was it that first started getting you into making mead and stuff then?
Yeah, thanks. So my grandpa was a mead maker, and when I was little, I remember him pouring mead at the little tasting room he had at our family's old apple ranch. Mm-hmm. And when he would pour mead, the room would just light up. The kind of scary adults that I didn't know would transform into these laughing, friendly people. And I was like, Pop, what is this magical thing you're serving these people? And he was like, oh, it's an adult drink made from honey. So I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And he then gave me his last bottle, like 11 years later. And we were cleaning out the attic and the garage, and there was one more bottle of his mead. And I'd read all the epic stories about mead in between time, from when he would pour it when I was little to when he gave me that bottle. And I was like, this stuff that these Viking warriors are drinking and like people are going on epic quests for, I get like the last bottle my grandpa made, this is epic. So he gave it to me and we drank it, and it was just like beyond my wildest dreams, sunlight and flowers in the glass.
That's cool.
And I was like, I need to start making this stuff because I can't get it anywhere.
Yeah.
And my friends were homebrewing, so I was like, well, if they can make beer, I can make mead. That's not that hard, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we got started.
So what was the first batch that you made?
It was a wildflower honey with Earl Grey tea and a little bit of lemon peel, and it turned out pretty bad.
Was that one of your grandpa's recipes, or just?
No, my grandpa was kind of on the downward slope at that point, so we couldn't really ask him how to make it and all this stuff. But we went online and just kind of researched, and for some reason I picked that recipe over, the 20 other I saw on gotmead.com, and like worried about it, went and checked on it like 4 times a day, you do your first batch, and it was drinkable, but by no means great. But it was enough to like, hey, we can do this.
Yeah.
So over the next couple of years, we would just make a different recipe basically every time until we came up with this lemon ginger that people would drink 5 gallons of in a night.
Wow.
And it just got, dance parties happened. Yeah. So it was fun.
That's cool. And was that with like a wine yeast then?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We were just using wine yeast. Ale yeast only came about in 2013 with Morey Fletcher.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that typical for people who make mead to use ale yeast, or is it just something that you guys are doing?
Yeah, we're one of the few, if not the only. Most people use like 71B.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just find it to be very wine-like and fruity. And so for our style that we're after, which is more refreshing and more lighter bodied and more balanced, interesting but approachable, we think the ale yeast just does a really solid job.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's a lot more drinkable than like you go to the store and you get a bottle of mead and it's something that you sip on, like a bottle of wine. You know what I mean? Whereas this, I can definitely like,
a flagon. Yeah. Cheers, Dave.
So was mead the first thing that you made at home, or did it evolve? Like, I know you talked a little bit about your grandpa, but did you make beer or wine before it, or you went straight for the mead?
I have never made a batch of beer before.
Really?
Yeah, mead was the first thing I made. And I made some wine at a winery, a local winery, which was a great experience, great learning opportunity. But my full focus has been on mead for the last 5 years as a meadery, and then 10 years as a home mead maker.
Cool, very cool. Yeah. So how did you transition from brewing at home into the commercial side of stuff?
How did I? So we were making mead for friends, and they would drink 5 gallons in a night. And my buddy Joe Colangelo, one of my co-founders, was like, Frank, people will give us money for this. And I was like, that's crazy. And he was like, no, really, they will pay for this experience. It makes them want to dance. They're going to like it. So I was like, all right, how do we do that? And luckily, I had 4 years in the Navy to kind of figure that out. So after undergrad, while I was in the Navy, working 16-hour days, 7 days a week, my wife asked me, what would I do with all the time, money, and energy in the world? And I was like, I would make mead and share it with people. And she was like, well, you should do that. So I took that and went back to that idea of making mead and selling it to people and said, well, we can figure this out. So that was really how it got started. My wife asking me that question and my buddy Joe saying people would give us money.
That's cool. And I saw that you guys did like a Kickstarter campaign.
We did a Kickstarter.
That's awesome. Like,
Thanks.
That's really cool.
So the Kickstarter was a huge boost to our confidence that we weren't just woodshedding this thing, that people, 150 or so people gave us like $20,000, which is crazy. And it was like, wow, people want to support us. And, we made a couple batches. Up to that point, we had made a couple batches and sold them. And we shared about our vision and growing Southern California's first meadery. And people wanted to make it happen. Greg Cook from Stone gave us $100 and tweeted about us on Twitter. Yeah, that was huge. And then that closed the round pretty much.
Yeah.
Like after he tweeted about us, a bunch of people that we never even met just jumped in. So that was huge for us. And that really was enough to make us dangerous. $20,000 to start a fermentation business is enough to get a tank and a space and start. And there was one night where we were out in a barn. Like a winery had let us use their barn to make one of our batches of mead. And the fermentation stalled out. And I only found out about it around 5 p.m. that night. And I had to get a bunch of equipment and materials together to kind of save the batch.
Code red.
Yeah, like this was a huge investment for us. And if we didn't save this thing, I don't know what we would have done. So it was probably about 10:30. My first daughter was 2 weeks old. My wife and business partner and I drive out to the winery at like 11 p.m. And this barn has no lights. So my business partner is using his cell phone flashlight to help me clean out the tank at like midnight. And, I'm kind of dazed. Very stoked though, because like we're making the mead dream happen. And at one point my business partner, Joe Colangelo, is like, holding the cell flashlight, and I'm in the tank scrubbing it out. And he was like, Frank, if the universe is truly infinite, somewhere someone is paying to do what I'm doing right now. I was like, that's right, man. That's right. So my wife's there, like, nursing our 2-week-old child and, like, knitting, and this barn is dirt floors and bare ceilings and no lights. And like, this is living the dream. Yeah. This is what it takes to make this happen. So as you scale up, the same things kind of happen, but in different kind of spectra. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it gets less and less common. But, if you want to make it work, you got to just show up and make it happen.
So what do you feel is the most important aspect of the actual mead making process?
Oh, yeast health, really. Okay. So what is the most important step in the mead making process? Honey quality and yeast health.
Okay.
I think are clutch. You can have great honey, but if you have a unhealthy fermentation, it's going to ruin it. Bad honey, healthy fermentation, it's going to taste weird on the back end. So Ken Schramm, right, the author of The Complete Mead Maker, gave a great podcast on gotmead.com, their first podcast about honey selection. And his words, I think, still guide us. Like, honeys that have floral, fruity characteristics or caramely, malty characteristics, that's where you want to select your honey from. If you're getting into vegetally or herbaceous or medicinal honeys, what's going to be left over after all the sugar is fermented out is going to be kind of intense. Could get weird and interesting, but the likelihood of like a mass or a larger appeal product is going to be lower. So start with a honey that you like with a floral, fruity, or malty, caramely flavor profile, and then have a really healthy fermentation. Realize that honey doesn't have nitrogen in it, and the yeast needs some source of oxygen as well in those first couple of days of fermentation. So if you want to make a healthy mead, you want to give those yeasts some source of nitrogen and some source of oxygen. So we follow the staggered nutrient addition method that we've kind of modified a little bit ourselves. But once people get a couple batches under their belts, we really recommend people get into staggered nutrient addition and aeration the first 72 hours of fermentation.
Very cool. So if you could invent any type of honey to make mead from, what would it be?
Ooh. So orange blossom is amazing. And when it's, speaking of which, let's pour some orange blossom. So I love that orange blossom is so floral and so varied. Like, but if I could just get lemon blossom honey, which is possible, but really hard. And do you know how honey is made? About the bees telling each other where to go? Okay, so this is an awesome story. So bee wakes up and it's sunrise and it flies out of the hive and it's like, what kind of nectar am I going to gather today? And it goes out and it just samples a bunch of different nectars and it's like, this is the one. This is the best nectar I've tasted. And it comes home and it shares that nectar with its sisters and it says, hey, this is really good. This is how you find it. And it does a little dance where it like waggles, and the waggle and the distance that it waggles is the distance from the hive that the bee needs to fly to find it. And then it walks at an angle, and that's the angle relative to the sun that the bee needs to fly to find this nectar source. So that sister will recruit all of her sisters to go get this one source of nectar. So a beekeeper who's paying attention will be like, hey, the orange blossoms are in nectar flow. I'm going to put a fresh box on top of my hive and just capture orange blossom honey.
Okay.
And then the bees are just plugging out orange blossom honey all day long. So if we could get lemon blossom honey like that, that would be awesome.
So what's the problem with getting that then?
So, oh man. Basically, beekeepers who are out pollinating only lemon groves.
Okay.
Lemons are a pretty specialty crop. Mm-hmm. They end up kind of blending all the citrus honeys together to get enough to sell.
Oh, okay.
So we envision kind of building our own supply chain. But this is orange blossom. So notice the color, much lighter, a straw golden color, and then the aroma on it. Be super citrusy, right? Like, I mean, to me, it's like orange peel and mandarin orange fruit. And then so you get that, just orange blossom. I mean, it's like it's like walking through a grove of orange trees in bloom.
That is cool.
Yeah. So if we could get that lemon blossom to get it a little zestier, I think that would be like next level for me.
Very cool. Very cool. So when you're making your mead, do you heat your honey at all during the process?
No. So we don't heat our honey at all. That would be like boiling grapes before making wine. Like, it would denature all of the volatile organic compounds that bring the delicate flavor profiles to the mead making process. So we want to preserve those, and so we treat our honey really gently.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Just basically take the honey, mix it with water, and then add the yeast and the nutrient.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the meads that you have here? Obviously, you have the French oak, or the California oak, the French oak, and then what was the other two? The orange blossom and
Galligrog. Yeah, so California oak's kind of our flagship. We want all of our meads to show honey up front, but we want them to be balanced, and we want them to have a level of complexity and depth, and then finish dry and refreshing. Because we're in Southern California, it's hot. People want to drink things. I want to drink things that are refreshing and like, give me more of that. You know, when it's cold, I love a traditional mead around the fireplace at the end of the night. You know, with friends, getting all philosophical. But most of the time, we like a lighter-bodied, refreshing mead with honey notes that is balanced on the back end. So all these have some layer of balance. The California oak is balanced by the American oak, vanilla caramel tannin kind of structure from the American oak. Then the honey is this kind of melody note on top of the oak's baseline. And they kind of dance off of each other. Like, the oak will be strong up front, then the honey will come in with all these nice floral elements. One thing that kind of blows my mind still is that the bees have to visit 2 million flowers to make 1 pound of honey. We use 1/3 of a pound of honey in every bottle. So it's like 600,000 flowers in every bottle. So those floral essences are like insane.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Savage Blah is a kind of horizontal comparison between the American oak and Savage, which has French oak. Mm-hmm. So that French oak gives it a much more culinary spice piece. We backed off the oak in this batch, so it's really subtle, but it lends itself to really setting off the floral and spicy characteristics of the honey. Mm-hmm. So American oak is kind of our 5 o'clock mead, like get off work and come home and drink that. Maybe have it with fish tacos. Savage is more of our dinner mead, like a bit more subtle, a bit more able to be balanced with food. Game or barbecue is what I like to kind of go for with that. And then Orange Blossom is this like light floral, fruity, really delicate thing that would be like a Prosecco or a aperitif. Mm-hmm. Also, so it goes great with fruit or cheese, those kinds of courses. Then we got Galligrog, which is just a bit wild. So this is an experiment in kind of souring and aging with a lot of oak. So if you're ready, I'd love to pour you some.
Ready.
So Galligrog is going to be on the total opposite end of the spectrum from Orange Blossom. It pours this really dark, almost bourbon-like color. And then, like, the nose on it should be very bourbon-like. Yeah. Wow.
I think I just found my favorite.
Yeah? Good, man. Yeah. It's, like, super roasty
good.
and
That's
rich.
really good. Yeah, it's been, like, the little bit of sourness really offsets the strong. Yeah, exactly. That's
and then the
really
honey
good.
is just like this dark herbaceous floral note that kind of persists through
brings
the whole
all
thing.
together.
Good, yeah.
That's really good. I really
Thanks,
like that.
man. Yeah. So we get to have a lot of fun with just the total range of experiments, and we're rolling out 6% mead. Mm-hmm. So we wanted a mead that we could drink a couple of glasses of and still get up and dance. You know. We also have kind of a champagne-like mead in the works. We've been under the champagne level of carbonation, but we're going to go all the way for a champagne-like mead. And then a couple of herbal and kind of elixir-like meads, because there was that great tradition of adding herbs and spices to mead and making these methylglins, which were these, like, where the word medicine came from in Old Welsh. Oh. You know, so there's a great tradition there and a lot of epic stories to tell from these ancestral meads. So we're excited about expanding our kind of product offering soon.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
What's your personal favorite mead?
Dude, so actually our sours have really been the most complex and kind of engaging for me. So we have a sour Orange Blossom that we're out of now. But when we can make that one and it sings, it's just incredibly floral, incredibly citrusy. You get all those delicate orange blossom aromas, but then the acid from the lactobacillus in the sour cuts it, balances it, gives it this length and this finish. I mean, this has a great finish on it too. But instead of those dark whiskey herbaceous finishing notes, it gets this great champagne, crisp, long finishing note to it, and that's just priceless to me.
So you seem to be like really passionate about it. Is it kind of hard for you sometimes if it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want it? Like,
yeah. So I think this craft is really wonderfully challenging and inspiring because the book has not been written.
Yeah.
Right, and so there's no like. We're ultimately the best judges of it. You know, do I want more of it? Is ultimately the question that separates good from bad. And like there are things I love about all of these, and I want them more of them in different situations. You know, I think also one person, Susan Rudd, who's this great mead maker from North Dakota. She has a meadery in Fargo. She once said, Frank, there's going to be meads that you love, meads that your customers love, and meads that win awards. And finding the overlap between all three of those circles is a very tight element to chase. So if you focus on the things that you love and your customers love, you'll be able to keep doing it. And if you win the awards on top of it, great.
That's very cool.
You know, so we found a style that we love, that our customers love. The awards aren't coming in because we're way out of the scope of the standards that have been written. They've been written by winemakers who came to mead making, and we're hoping to kind of push the envelope there. And I think we're making some headway, but you know, those things take time. So at the end of the day, I love these meads and I want to drink more of them, and our customers do too. So let's keep doing that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I understand you're really passionate about bees and their conservation and stuff. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So since 2006, the American beekeeping industry has been dealing with this problem called colony collapse disorder, where they'll go out to a hive and all the workers will be gone. There'll be a queen and a few kind of nurse bees and a lot of larvae, but no one to bring the honey home and defend the hive. So the colony ends up dying. And beekeepers are losing like 40 to 60% of their hives every year.
Jeez.
It's insane. So it's a big problem because about 1 in 3 bites of our food, or 4 out of 10 specialty crops, are pollinated by bees. So we need them to continue doing this in countries where they don't have enough bees. People are out there hand pollinating crops. So they have like a little jar of pollen and a cotton swab, and they're out there dusting each flower in the peach orchard, for instance. So if we want our food system to continue operating the way that we've kind of set it up, we need bees. And the way that I see it is like these beekeepers love their job. They want to make a living keeping bees, but the only way they can really do it now is by pollination services, where they drive their bees around the country, drop them off at different orchards, and the bees fly around, pollinate the flowers, and then the beekeepers pick them up and move them to the next orchard. But that whole process really stresses them out.
Yeah.
They're on the back of trucks, then they're dropped in the middle of a monoculture where only one kind of flower is growing. Mm-hmm. So the bees don't have this diversity of diet that keeps them healthy. And then they're stressed out, they're only eating one kind of food, and now they're exposed to all the other bees that are brought from all over the country. Mm-hmm. And so the diseases that get passed around, and this parasitic mite called Varroa destructor, it would be like the size of a rabbit if a bee was the size of a human, sticks onto their back, sucks their blood, gives them a virus and a fungus. The bees are already weak because of the stress of driving around, and then they get all of each other's diseases. So this is like a really unsustainable way to keep bees going in America, but we need them. So what I imagine is mead becoming an industry that stands on its own and can afford to pay beekeepers a higher price for their honey to make great meads. Look at the wine industry as an example, right? Like grape grower business really changed when wine became a really highly valued product. Mm-hmm. So winemakers could pay more for great grapes. I see the same thing happening with mead. Mead makers being able to pay more for great honey to make great mead. So beekeepers can then take way better care of their bees, and we can have a whole class of beekeepers who makes a living off of selling honey to mead makers. So that's the vision that we really want to build, but we've got to deal with the world as it is. Mm-hmm. Right now, 80% of revenue for beekeepers comes from pollination, and only 20% comes from honey. Like the small guys who sell at the farmer's market, they make their money selling honey, but it's really hard for them to do it more than a sideline business. If people are doing full-time beekeeping, they're probably doing pollination services and then just selling their honey as an afterthought. Oh. It's kind of crazy. So we want to change that, and that's why we give 1% of our gross revenue to research about colony collapse disorder and how to solve it, and then we're investing in a supply chain for honey that's going to be good for the bees. Mm-hmm. So we've got kind of a staff beekeeper. We helped her get her apiary started, and we've got a contract with her to buy all of her honey as she starts to make it for our specialty batches. And then we work with some family-owned apiaries who are smaller, but we make specialty batches like Galligrog out of their specialty honey.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So when you're making beer, you're using like barley and hops and stuff like that. How does that affect the environment versus how obviously you have bees for your mead,
Yeah. So I love this. 1 pint of beer takes 769 gallons of water to grow the barley for that one glass of beer.
Jeez.
It's like insane. And that's like a pale ale. By contrast, one glass of mead, if it's clover honey, for instance, 6 inches of rain. Like, you don't even need to irrigate it.
Yeah.
No pesticides, no tractors, no huge monocultures. The bees are just out there gathering nectar from these flowers. And clover is a really great plant. The USDA actually pays farmers to plant it so that it builds soil because it's a nitrogen-fixing plant. Okay. So just having it on marginal land is really good for farmers. So playing out this kind of mead vision, if by some magical process we were able to displace all beer with mead, we could potentially have a way healthier American agriculture because we wouldn't need to invest all of this money into pesticides, fertilizers, mechanization. We just have bees on top of clover fields and other healthy ecosystems gathering nectar.
Yeah.
So it's a big game changer. There's a lot of steps between where we're at now and all the way down there, but hopefully that means that consuming the products that we consume is making the environment healthier and more able to support life instead of ripping up ecosystems to plant barley and hops.
So becoming part of the ecosystem rather than drawn out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you, Frank. This has been really, really awesome. I've really enjoyed coming down here and meeting you.
Yeah.
If you guys are in the area, come check out the Oceanside Tasting Room. You guys also have a tasting room up in Julian, right?
Yep.
So go up there. If you're not in the area, they actually have an online store where you can order the mead from. And I would highly recommend joining their mead club, which is awesome. Kilted Brewer recommended. If you've enjoyed this interview, remember to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on YouTube. Slán